Hello again, it's Daybreak Africa. If you just tuned in, reaching you for studio saying on the city, of course, I'm Ezekiel Ogar. This one we're talking on economic crisis and how it tends to affect the education sector here in Nigeria. And of course, I have a lecturer in the house to do justice to this discuss today, person of Wale Oyedeji. Welcome on Daybreak Africa.
Good afternoon.
A very good morning to you.
To you too.
It's been a while.
I wanted saying that.
I really enjoyed the last time you were here.
The last conversation was actually intriguing, and I like that.
All right. Okay. We have a very important one, and also we hope it's going to be intriguing.
I mean, being
now,
your specialty.
Your specialty. When you talk education, you see the lecturers, you see the teachers all coming out.
Yeah.
Now, we are in a country, it's not new to us.
Yeah.
The financial issues, economic issues have been there. But now, I want you to give us an analysis, an in-depth analysis on how education has been affected by the economic issue that Nigeria is facing. Also, having in mind with the previous administration down to the new policies that the new administration are trying to bring in.
Okay. I declare first that I am not an expert in economics.
Okay.
And by the virtue of that, the macro effect of economic policies may not be entirely looked into, professionally.
Okay.
But when we are talking about the micro effect on education, of course, I'm going to view it from the angle at which it affects education, my primary area of service. So when we are looking at this, we have to consider it from different angles. One of it is being, how does it affect lecturers? And lecturers are going to be subsumed under workers in this kind of, and you know, when there is a change in policy, when there's a change in economic condition of an environment, it affects workers, people who work in the environment. So when you look at lecturers, you know, you look at the economic crisis we have, it is directly affecting a number of them. One, because you have their wages, something that is not really strong enough to take them home. You understand? And when you have an economic condition that requires them to spend, because you have to spend. As a lecturer, you have a family. In most cases, you have your wife, you have your kids that you are responsible for their maybe, you know, feeding and all like that, their welfare. Now, in a situation whereby there is a change in economic condition, it's going to affect you drastically. That is when we are talking about lecturer. We're going to look at that in the course of our engagement. But when we look at students too, students are an important stakeholder in education system of any country. In a situation whereby policies are affecting them, of course, you know, the devastating effects cannot be entirely measured, or you may not accurately guess it. Take for example, we have so many students that do not have the financial capability to pay their fees, you know, many of them. In fact, on a number of occasions, I'm privy to some students that will come to you and say, oh, please, they need help here and there. Now, if a student cannot afford their school fees when it is cheaper, imagine what the condition is going to be on them. So generally, the change in economic condition, the economic crisis you have in the world, in Nigeria today, is having a devastating effect on education system, represented, one, by lecturers, two, by students, and three, education itself. Because education itself, it has to do with knowledge generation and production, distribution and all. How do we finance knowledge generation? You know, these are things that we're going to be looking in.
Now, it's true there has been an economic crisis, but rightly said, we are not economists per se. But as to cushion a certain economic crisis in Nigeria, you know, the present administration tends to talk about the loan, student loan thing. Do you think so far this step is trying to really cushion that effect, or it's more like just another?
You see, in reality, professionals across every field, what we do is that before we give opinions, we take into consideration the historical trajectory of what is happening in that particular ground. You get? One, if anybody tells you that the policy introduced by the current administration will not have a positive effect, you will not misunderstand them, because their opinion is based on what they have seen in the past. As the government representative, or as the have government representative been sincere with their policy formulation? Are they serious about implementation? To a reasonable extent, does Nigeria's economic system have that ability to, you know, to withstand such a policy? For example, if you give loans to students, at the end of their loans, if they graduate and they could not secure necessary employment, it's going to have a fallback effect entirely. One, on Nigerian posts where we are drawing the money, and two, on the Nigerian populace who could not be useful for themselves even after attaining knowledge and all like that. And when you consider the countries that are, you know, operating this kind of system, you have to look at the social, moral, philosophical consequences of these policies on them. Look at America, for example. America gives students loan there. Will it not shock you that in most cases, many of them don't even take this loan because most of them don't even go to, education beyond their high school education. It is a very, when you measure the percentage and all like that, it shows you something. It is either that there is a problem of maybe repaying the loan for the government, and when students feel they couldn't do that, it is better they don't take it at all than bringing themselves under unnecessary pressure. But this is Nigeria. What I am concerned about is sincerity, and that sincerity will birth implementation. Do you get it? Because if government officials are not sincere, implementation will be poor, and that will generate negative results in the long run. But making it available itself is a good move, provided there is a serious, energy behind that policy introduction itself. The moment we realize that these people are serious and they have ways by which they can do that, of course, let us be positive.
No, the truth is, this government has already tried to really impute one thing or the other to the education sector.
Yes.
And to some extent, I dare say it's still quite epileptic.
Yeah.
Just to some extent.
Okay.
Now, where do you think they're actually getting it wrong?
Well, we have to first understand
Bearing in mind that
why you
really
said they are
put
epileptic. You get it now? When we say they are erratic, we have to understand the context. If I have a better knowledge of that, I can say, okay, why are they actually like this? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because especially with education sector, if a government is not up to 3 months of age in the governance, introduces student loan, well, maybe that should be some silver lining in the long run. Do you get? But like I'm saying, the effectiveness of this policy will be measured by the ability to at least follow up with better policies that will ensure or secure students' future. Consider, for example, if there are companies that are in Nigeria now, if we have international organizations that are investing in the Nigerian economy, that will provide you the job market where graduates can go into and get themselves something doing. In that case, they will be useful for themselves, useful for the society at large. But in a situation whereby you even give them the money for free, there is no employment in the long run, the effect will be brain drain eventually. That is what is happening now. You have many Nigerian graduates who are moving abroad, and it has implications. Of course, in most cases, non-professionals usually see that condition as a progress. When you go to America, you go to UK, you say Otejapa. But the problem is that what are the devastating consequences of this on our economy, on our progress? Because as we were intellectualized, we were educated by Nigerians intellectuals. That is, they have deposited something into our head. In a situation whereby we are not using that mental power to transform the society, it is a minus to the society. And no matter the amount anybody is sending from England to you, from America to you, from Canada to you, we are at least, at a short of a larger percentage that we will have realized we have those minds, those brains in our country. Do you get it now? So we have to be very, very sensitive, be careful the way we bring policies.
You made a statement earlier when you talked about the students being a factor, talking about lecturers too.
Yes.
Now, there are a lot of things that are really going on in schools. Mostly you think about research. And most lecturers are supposed to go into research. Lack of fund. Most people say, this and that are not happening. Now, as a lecturer, it's your field. You know what is really going on there. Now, I want you to give me analysis. What is the lecturers doing wrong? What are the things that the students are doing wrong? And also the government, which most people will point accusing fingers to. What do you think they are doing wrong in trying to enable people for researchers to come out of our university, our tertiary education, and make things work for us in our country?
Let me start from the government in that order. You see, in the past, or may I say in the recent past, the Nigerian government has not been doing enough in understanding the context of educational problems in order to provide the right solutions to them. In every country, progressive country, you invest in research. In fact, that is the backbone, the pillar of the progress. Let me give you a very good example. I think that is it California now in America? It is the research hub of the whole. In fact, I don't think they have any other thing other than their brains there, But what they generate annually is very substantial, so much that in fact so many countries in Africa combined, in some cases cannot generate it. The problem is that our government does not understand that we need to invest in research. Because research has to do about finding solutions to existing problems, patenting this solution and making your money in the international community. Now, instead of the government to look for ways by which this will be effective, they are introducing a kind of a payment formula, payment structure that will homogenize payment across Nigeria. Of course, as a lecturer, I'm not giving my my candid opinion on that, because it's something systemic. But as an individual, I will tell you this step is wrong. Let me give you a very good example. There are so many universities in America. If you are valuable to them, they know they can get something from you, and you are in Nigeria, they will take you as research assistant. They will be paying you. They will pay you from the purse of the school, which means the federal government of America may not, or may not, they are not aware of the payment they make to you. But the school knows what they are getting from you. Now, but when you homogenize the payment of lecturers, it means whatever the school is going to do, we cannot do without Abuja. Do you see the implication now? It means we cannot take people who we know that these people can help us. So if you're a professor in University of South Africa now, we need you. We cannot employ you. You get the idea? Even regardless of that you are there, they don't understand. So that is a fault on the government. On lecturers, I would say the leadership structure too has a lot to bear.
I really want you to buttress on that.
It's quite organized, but okay.
They have something to bear on it, because one epidemic we don't usually pay attention to in Nigeria is that we don't have sincere leaders. It is sincerities that actually is not there. It's not an ingredient that you can find in Nigerian environment any longer. Because if you are a leader and they allocate certain amount of money to your office that you should dispense certain you have to be accountable. But accountability is lacking. Before it is shameful. In fact, it is kind of diminishing that government officials, who in most cases do not have the level of academic exposure that lecturers have, will accuse you that you have mismanaged fund. They will not accuse you if you don't have evidence. So it is that evidence that, now imagine you have rubbished that position by misappropriating funds associated to your office in order to implement changes in your environment. But you are not doing it. So if you are not doing it enough, how would you now say federal government should not come and say we introduce IPPS? How would you blame them for saying I will introduce this? Do you get the idea now? So if the leadership structure is not entirely effective as it is expected, of course, the consequences will be bad. Now, on the part of students too, let us be realistic. The generation of students we have now is lazy.
Wow.
You get it?
That's a big one.
Lazy. And I mean lazy. And I will cite a couple of examples. Well, it includes me, because when we talk about things like this, we are considering generations altogether. But laziness from the angle that we fail to understand that there's something we can offer that is locked in our head. When you look at all the big tech companies currently making waves around the world, look at Elon Musk, look at the Zuckerbergs and all. Look at the TikTok. If you ask me now, you have many Nigerians on TikTok, many of them making money. But imagine the amount of money they are making. Compare it to the owner of TikTok. Are you getting it now? But the money that Nigerian guy making 2 million per day, making 2 million per month is making, he is overwhelmed. He has arrived. He has forgotten that somebody is the one paying him. Do you get it now? Now, where we should understand there's need for a change is that we need to begin to use our head. How do we do this? Although many Nigerian students are trying in this aspect, I'm aware of some people who sometimes ago, they have developed their app and all like that, and they went to the necessary quarters they should go to in Abuja. And the people in Abuja are requesting for money from them. Like 50, the idea too. That can be discouraging. That is why sometimes I will not blame Nigerians as well. But the thing is that we must change our orientation. We must not be unnecessarily capitalist-centered. Our thinking is too capitalist.
I want to come in there. You gave us 3 factors: the students, the lecturers, and the government. Now, on the part of the government, I can understand the part of the lecturer when you mention bad leadership, because it's not a thing that is new. We already know that most times we see it happen, and this is because of maybe, let me say, greed. What you want to pocket alone, at the end of the day, whatever has been given to you, you mismanage it. Now, on the part of government, the way you said it, the payments and everything, should we say is a lack of knowledge from the part of government, or it's a deliberate act? That is one. And secondly, you also talked about the lazy part of the students. Now I want you to give us an analysis, as I always like to say that. the 1980s, 1970s kind of students and the way the educational structure was then. What is it that we are really missing right now that is making things not work for us?
Okay. Let me start, not in the order of chronology this time, but let me start from your last question about what are we missing. The fact is that we should always be mindful of the important happenings in every century. That is when we understand that there is a change of events, a shift of orientation should take place too. The people who studied in 1980s, they didn't have WhatsApp, they didn't have Facebook, they didn't have Twitter. In other words, their level of distraction is limited. They are not constrained by things that distracted them like we have today. So for that reason, they had reasons to concentrate. But that concentration is, well, what is one of the things lacking now. And the inability of the other generation, I mean the generation we are following, to understand that there's a change in things now. Not understanding that there is a change has made them to be unnecessarily rigid. It is rigidity that makes our curriculum to remain unchanged regardless of the changing nature of everything in the world. Take for example, people are talking about AI intelligence, people are talking about cyber, so engineering and all. These things are not integrated in our curriculum as useful as they are in the current century. So if you don't factor in that the student that is continuously glued to TikTok, we want to create something out of it, for you to change their curriculum, that will enable you to change the curriculum so that it can accommodate whatever they want to learn. But if you are not changing it, you must study biology, you must study chemistry, you must, it is actually degenerating itself. It's not going to produce the expected result. There's a change, and we must follow that change. Now, on the part of government, I would say it's the combination of ignorance and greed. It is not, it is not doing something deliberately now. If you are a government official, naturally you should have good intention to your people. But if you are ignorant of the consequences of your action, you may not, be disposed to the right thinking in order for you to make decisions that will help them. When you homogenize the payment structure, you say people should pay IPPS on Abuja. IPPS itself is vulnerable. Vulnerable in that it is something on system. Anybody can just sit under the system and input anybody's name. You get, if you are working in IPPS and you have a brother that is looking for employment and not goes for 5-10 years, you may include their name in the payment structure. They get alert even without working. Although they will tell you it is not possible, I beg, it is possible. So they shouldn't tell us that. Now the other is that they should understand that school need autonomy. Schools must have their autonomy. It is that autonomy that enables schools to be, fluent, to be flexible in their decision making and all. It is schools that take research assistant, like I have cited as an example the other time, when they feel it is necessary. The moment they feel it is not necessary, they stop the service.
So you actually debunked that point, stating that there is actually lack of sincerity. So how do you expect the government to actually give that autonomy while we know for a fact, as you have said, that there is no sincerity at all?
That is why a third party, maybe, I don't know how I can call that.
More like a check and balance system?
Kind of check and balances should be there. At the point in time, I am aware that ASU, for example, proposed UTAS. That UTAS, I think university, teaching, whatever. I don't remember the full stuff now. But what they proposed was that this should be a kind of check and balance system that is going to oversee the activity, understand when they are making excesses and curb them as and when due. Do you get it now? There should be something like that. Of course, lecturers should take that too, because you who pays the piper should dictate the tune. It is the government that is paying them. But they shouldn't give them the reason to doubt the sincerity of their intelligence. When I was having my master's in UI, a day a professor cited an example that at a point in time in 1980s or thereabouts, lecturers converged and they were like, oh, we needed a raise in our pay and not like that. Suddenly, this professor just stood up from nowhere and said, teachers, why do you need a pay raise? Like, you are teachers, you are not politicians. You should earn things you can justify with what you have. Why do you, like, you have a car, you need a car, you have it, you are living your, that is the thinking of a teacher. And that's how it should be. That's why I'm saying we should not be unnecessarily capitalist centered. The moment you are capitalist centered, you want to have everything in the world. And you cannot be satisfied. That is where greed comes in. You get this, you want to acquire more. That kind of orientation does not move a country. It is not moving America. The reason why we think America is fine is that why the smaller percentage is having an impressive amount of wealth, but the larger percentage is not. Do you get it? So it is that small percentage that we see their their picture outside and say,
extravagant lifestyle.
But the larger percentage who are homeless, who do not go to university, who have only high school something, they struggle. So when you are greedy without limitation, the consequences may be, in fact, not may, will be bad. And we have to change that.
Now, I want to go to something very, most people, when the universal basic education came in, most people felt it was a good one. Now, most people still feel it's a good one. But you that you are in the system, I want you to tell us what is really going on. Has it been helpful? And if it's not helpful, if it's not doing well as of this moment, can you tell us what are the problems that are facing this as a policy that's supposed to help our education?
The universal basic education, right? The fact is that in the current time, people should have at least elementary education. In fact, not elementary, but elementary to the, when I say elementary this sense, I even mean into the secondary school stage. Do you get it now? People should acquire education to that extent. I tell my students, any opportunity I have, that their popular niche that education has come is a misconception, and it is a misconception that can lead them to a wrong destination in the long run. I tell people, education does not promise you that opportunity or that ticket to securing wealth. Don't have that orientation. Education does not promise you at any time that you are going to have tickets to wealth or wealth accumulation. If you have that orientation, you are wrong. But education promises you that you will be smart. Like you are smart. A guy came in the other time, he was talking about how he has spent a month and something like that, to acquire a kind of skill that you expect him to spend more time. But that is smartness. Of course, he's considering his options. He could take it and still get whatever he needs within that period of time, if he could dedicate him time. So that is education. Somebody who is not educated may not understand that they can explore such opportunities even when they provide themselves. But you are educated. So you see, universal basic education is helpful to that extent. You must be able to acquire knowledge and have the sound mind to understand that opportunities exist every and anywhere, and you explore them. If I decide to be a teacher on TikTok today, I can do that. Of course. And I'm looking for my audience wherever they are in every part of the world, and I do my teachings and I earn my money very free. Of course I can. So the current world tells you that there is opportunity for anybody who is creative. Creativity will
now, that being said, if you ask most people, they will tell you most, let's say government officials, especially when they want to come into office, they campaign and they promise free education, free basic education and the rest. Now, at this stage that we are in Nigeria, do you think our economy can show that? And why has it not been really working for us for a couple of years?
I would not say free education is not working for us. When you look at the statistics of Nigerian intelligentsia who are excavated from Nigeria to other countries, the result will wow you. We are all aware, we all know to it, that regardless of the fact that they pontificate to our education system, even UK, US, they come to prey on our medical practitioners. They take them away. These are the people they say they don't have access to technology, they have access to equipment and all. Do you get it now? For them to come over and take away our own doctors, Nigerian trained doctors, it shows that the education system from where they develop is sound. That is one. Two, you can attest to it again that many Nigerian academics are doing very fine offshore of the country. Go to South Africa, you see a number of them teaching there and all like that. So if they tell you that, of course, statistics is saying no to that stuff. So, but what we are saying is that we have to decide. You see, we found ourselves in this categorization dilemma in the current world, in that we always have this binary understanding that if it is not this, it is not this. If it is not socialism, it is capitalism. If our education system or the attitude we have is not socialist in nature, it's going to be capitalist in nature. We have to look at the ideological base with which Nigeria is erected. People valued education, in as much education means exposure to knowledge and everything like that, before the whites came. So we have to understand, or we have to find ways by which you can preserve that culture, by which you can preserve that legacy. That will make us to make opportunities to study available to people irrespective of their background. Because when you study, it is education that makes you to be where you are.
Of course, you are very correct there. Now I want to bring to I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
Most people might really not understand, but I want you to give us a very clear understanding on it, because now, when we talk about things that are affecting education, firstly, we talk about the finances, that's the economic factors.
Yes, like
we have a lot of environmental factors, because our society and the rest.
Okay.
Now, we are in a country, in as much as we cry about no money, no this, no fund, no that, we have security issues.
Yeah.
So what part do you think the security issues that we have in Nigeria, let me not use this as crisis, but issues that we have in our country has played on our education and our economic towards our educational system?
Well, I will look at this question from a different perspective, and I hope my perspective is interesting. You see, in the current time, there is what we call transition from rural environment to urban environment. In a normal Nigeria or African society, people should be able to stay within their rural environment and have access to whatever educational system they want to have in the rural and still come back to their rural something. But when there is insecurity, of course, there's going to be a breach. There's going to be a kind of wall, rather. You wouldn't be able to access what you need to access, perhaps because of the existing security crisis. In other words, when there is an ongoing security problem, it provides a very difficult atmosphere for the successful implementation of educational ideas and all like that. People will not be able to flow as they will. Let me use Adeyemi Federal University of Education as an example. If as a student you are aware there is a problem around Lipakala area, and perhaps there is another one in Oka, there is naturally a kind of reaction that you have. You are going to have this mental wall erected in your mind in order for you, that will prevent you from going to access knowledge like you should. So when you have security crisis, the consequences on education can be extremely brutal. So we need to build up on that. We need to look for look at the areas where they have these issues and provide solution. Recently, one of our graduates going for a service in Nasarawa was kidnapped. Imagine that kind of the psychological consequences it will have on her as an individual. It will have on prospective core members too. So even someone maybe in the interior of Lipak, Laje can say, well, I don't even want to stress myself. You get, and they will be discouraged. So we may not be able to associate the direct consequences immediately, but they are there.
Okay, now I must say that we are really out of time.
Yeah.
So in just a minute, your last word now to the general public, which constitutes of both the lecturers like yourself, the students, and also the government.
Well, to my colleagues, my senior colleagues, the intellectual source from which I drew, at least to become whatever I am or that I will become, I will have to tell us that our responsibility is changing owing to the changing nature of the current happenings in our environment. The students that we are teaching now, they have a different mindset from what we had when we were coming. You get it now? So we have to understand their condition and apply our knowledge to answer that condition. On a number of cases, when I use examples, when I use analogy for my students, there are things they can relate with. I can tell them about Burna Boy, they will be happy, they want to participate. I can tell them about this and that because that is their age. We must not alienate them from knowledge because of the problem of their age. You get it now? So as lecturers, we must understand our role there and at least do something. As students, I want to tell you as well that you need to understand that knowledge is indisputable in whatever you are going to do. And mind you, having the first degree that you think or that we think we are having does not necessarily mean you are going to have access to the wealth of the world. What it means is that it positions you in the right place. It gives you the right kind of mindset that will enable you to explore every opportunity when they appear. So take it when they appear. And you must prepare your mind towards that. And when you are given opportunity to serve in any capacity, be reasonable enough to give lasting legacy. And for the government as well, the government should understand that without education, the society itself will be backward. So as a result of that, when they are introducing policies, they should at least be decent enough to contact people on the field You cannot generate policies for people in education now without at least integrating educationists in your. That would be antithetical to whatever you have in mind. So the government is encouraged as well, you know, to take necessary measures before there's a drive for new policies and all like that, and things will actually change for the better.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. I'm really tempted to call you Prof, but that's I believe it's going to come soon. So I really enjoyed your analysis on the program. We will look forward to have you some other time.
Definitely.
All right, viewers, I'm very sure you've heard it all. You've enjoyed the whole analysis and how it's supposed to be done. Being a student, being a family person, you're a father, you're a mother, you're a parent, you are a lecturer, you are working in the government parastatal. Please, education is the bedrock of development in our country, in our society. We should look into it and put every hand possible to put things positive well into this sector and make things work for all of us. From us here, we'll be handing over to our Lagos studio, which we believe they have more interesting package to give to you. From here, I'll be signing out. I remain Michael Obagiri.
And just like you rightly said, education is no scam. Of course, I remain Ezekiel Ogar.